Hey there, YouTube. It is your boy B3. Back with another vlog. It is a monster. Oh, I need to trim this mustache, don't I? Oh, it is another monster vlog, but not Monsterverse, not even Kaiju. Today we're talking about Venom. Yes, I know this is Toxin, but it's still Eddie Brock, right? It's still Eddie Brock. So, Venom 2 is coming out. Well, it's not called Venom 2. We don't put numbers in movie titles a lot these days for sequels. Have you noticed that? That's kind of an old-fashioned thing now. They basically only do it for comedies these days. Basically, that's not like a, set in stone thing. But we have Venom coming out. Venom, Let There Be Carnage. We all knew Carnage would be the Venom because we had that scene in Venom where we see Cletus Cassidy. But while Carnage is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, my favorite thing in comics is symbiotes. The Marvel symbiotes are my favorite thing. Venom is my favorite comic book character, specifically the Eddie Brock one. Uh, in fact, very soon, well, actually, not but too soon. Next month, I'm reviewing all the Donny Cates Venom stuff, Absolute Carnage, etc. on the main channel. All those Venom comic books from recent years I'll be reviewing. So, we have Carnage in this movie, but here's the thing. Carnage should not be a major character in Venom 2. He just shouldn't be. And I have good reasons. Is Carnage one of the greatest Marvel and greatest comic book villains of all time? Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For sure. That's why when he shows up in comics these days, it's always like a really big deal. And is usually a crossover or event of some kind when Carnage shows up these days. Uh, it usually doesn't take just Spider-Man or just Venom to beat him. It almost always takes more than that. At least the two of them teaming up. Carnage is a huge threat in the Marvel Universe. And that's good. We need a cool big threat. But it's basically the same thing as the last movie. Okay, so imagine when Marvel and Sony teamed up and they started making Spider-Man movies set in the MCU. Imagine in the very first film, Spider-Man fights Green Goblin. Cool. I don't think arch foes should be in the first film. I actually have a formula that maybe I will lay out that isn't used, but I think should be later in another video. I think it deserves its own video. So he fights Green Goblin in one movie, and then in the very next movie, he fights Hobgoblin. Now, if you went to the second movie not knowing anything about it, and then you sat down, and Hobgoblin was the villain, who's... I know they're actually relatively different in the comics, but it's the same motif. It's like the same type of gear, except Osborn's, Green Goblin, it's more of a personal thing for Spider-Man, and for Hobgoblin, it's more just Spider-Man's in the way of them making money, pretty much. They're basically the same villain, but with different motivations, to be completely honest. And Hobgoblin goes about things a different way with all his brainwashing, etc. I'm getting off topic. But it's basically the same villain. And I feel like Carnage might be the same way with Riot. Because remember, Riot was the villain in the first film. I thought it should have been Scream. If they were going to use a Life Foundation symbiote, Scream, right? I mean, I don't see Riot getting a solo series. Scream's had some solo stuff. I don't know. I think Scream would have been the one to use, honestly. But we kind of did see that symbiote, though. This is what happens when you don't have a script. Riot and Carnage have functionally the same powers. Carnage just has them better. if that makes sense. Carnage's like healing factor and stuff is better because his symbiote like is a perfect fusion with him. And he's got that whole psychotic killer thing going on. He'll obviously have very different motivations than Riot did, but I mean, Hobgoblin and Green Goblin have different motivations, as I said, but it's still not very different. You know what I mean? You don't. You just need to break it up. I think Carnage should have been the villain in the third movie because Carnage is the top tier shit, right? Like, that's the biggest threat Venom's probably going to face solo on screen is Carnage, if you're going by comic stuff. The middle movie should have been who's the character who's probably Venom's real arch nemesis, Jack-O-Lantern. You might not know who Jack-O-Lantern is. He's like this flaming pumpkin-headed guy. He's... Ooh! Almost dropped my phone. Yeah, that's right. The camera's still not working. I need to get a new camera. Jack-O-Lantern is basically Venom's version of a goblin. There have been many different Jack-O-Lanterns over the years. My favorite one is the one that was Agent Venom's arch foe. Yeah. Hey, it was pretty cool. He was crazy. Very dope. Agent Venom blew a grenade up in his face. It was awesome. It was so cool. Jack-O-Lantern should have been the villain for the second film. Absolutely, it should have been Jack-O-Lantern. I mean, he's super creepy and cool looking. He's not... This doesn't have the same damn power set as the previous villain. And also, it's almost worse with Venom than it would be with Spider-Man. Because if you had Spider-Man fight Green Goblin and then Hobgoblin immediately after, like... at least Spider-Man and the Goblins have different abilities, right? But Venom's also a symbiote. So Venom and Riot have the same powers. And then Venom and Carnage have the same powers. And it's like, think about it in reverse, right? If the villain of the first film would have been Carnage, which they would have had to jump through a lot of hoops to do. If the villain of the first film was Carnage, and then the villain of the second film was Riot, would you be as excited for Venom 2 as you are with it being Carnage? No, because it's the same damn thing. Even a little bit of a downgrade, to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and pretend Carnage isn't an upgrade from Riot, but it's still not different enough. It's not different enough. We need a break between the symbiote villains. Jack-O-Lantern would have been the perfect break. And honestly, he is Venom's real arch foe. That's who Venom fights the most. And I know it could be argued that the arch foe isn't the one that they fight the most. The arch foe is the one that they have the biggest personal connection to, the one who hurts them the most. And that's probably Carnage. But also, Carnage really only shows up for crossovers. Carnage is almost more of a Marvel... Carnage is almost more of a planet-wide threat these days. Minimum Carnage, remember Minimum Carnage way back in the day of like, I don't know, 2012, 2013. God, that came out when I was, like right when I was out of high school, I think. He almost took over like a microscopic dimension. The dude was going to get pretty close to taking over the real world next. There was a kaiju Carnage in that. Like, Carnage is almost too big a foe to be the archenemy. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Jack-O-Lanterns don't have a personal feud with Venom. The Jack-O-Lantern that fought Agent Venom, Flash Thompson, that motherfucker had a personal feud with him because Flash Thompson put a grenade in his helmet and tried to kill him. And then there's, I believe he's still the current Jack-O-Lantern. I don't even know his name. He's a quote-unquote nobody who just found a stash of the Jack-o'-lantern's gear, and he kind of used it to pose as the Jack-o'-lantern so he could sell some weapons to supervillains and make some quick cash. He got caught by Venom, and Venom took one of his eyes because he went berserk due to Null's influence. And now that one has it out for Venom. He even made a deal with a witch and sided with Malakath in the War of the Realms just to hurt Venom. That's a personal grudge, which arch villains should have. Lex Luthor has a personal grudge with Superman, right? Green Goblin, personal grudge with Spider-Man. Sabretooth, personal grudge with Wolverine. You know, that's just what's up. Jack-o'-lantern would have been the perfect villain for the second movie. If there's a Venom 3, I mean, how do you do better than Carnage? How would you top Carnage if Venom 3 happens? Venom doesn't really, unless you do Null, but that would feel like a stretch. Null would be too much for Venom, especially since he hasn't even crossed over with the MCU third movie. Null would be like an Avengers level threat, you know? They'd have to either really weaken him or really integrate Venom into the MCU. So I don't see Null happening, you know? But yeah, that was kind of my disjointed, slightly and occasionally, well, very often off-topic rant about why Carnage should not be the villain in Venom 2. I do think Carnage should be on screen. Carnage is actually one of the comic book characters that I've wanted on the big screen the most for my entire life. I like superheroes and I like monsters, you know? The symbiotes are the perfect fusion of that. That's why I love them so much. But yeah, that's it for today's video. If you want to support us, you can check out the link in the description below. Support us on Patreon so I can get a new camera because mine doesn't work and I'd like to make stuff on the camera instead of the phone, you know? Like, the camera works fine if you're behind it, but it won't connect so that you can, like, watch a screen while you film yourself. So I can't, like, point the camera at myself and check the angles and stuff. It's always messed up. I can't keep myself in frame. So that's it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, etc. Support your local comic book store. Just thought I should throw that out there. And that's it. Thank you all once again. And if you want to see lots of other like comic book stuff, I've been reviewing tons and tons of graphic novels and comic books and stuff on the main channel. Link in the link tree down below. It's called Godzilla and Gigan. So that's it. Thank you all once again. See y'all next time.